Hi and welcome back to a new SoFi tutorial. Today I would like to discuss with you the main settings and main options we have in SoFi and how the user can change some settings present in SoFi. All this is part of the main SoFi tab up here. If you click on it, you will have this list. I will go through this list of options and then in the end discuss the main settings. The first four options, initialize SoFi, recreate panel, recreate settings, and recreate SoFi, are linked with recreating the SoFi panel or parts of the SoFi folder. The first two entries have the same result in that they will just close the panels and reopen the main panel, the main SoFi panel for you. The third option is useful in case you just want to update the SoFi folder, but you want to leave the PMF input and any externals untouched. In case you have to, or in case you want to completely reboot the SoFi folder, this option will delete the entire SoFi folder and you will start from scratch. The next option, SoFi panels to top, is useful in case you have a lot of graphs or panels open and you want to bring one particular panel to the top. We have some shortcuts that are listed here from Ctrl+1 down to Ctrl+8 for the main panels. Let me quickly demonstrate this with the main panel and the result panels. Ctrl+1 for the main panel and Ctrl+4 and Ctrl+5 for the result panels, blue and red respectively. Let me quickly open also the blue panel and the red panel. Imagine you have many more graphs there. You want to bring now the blue panel to top. With Ctrl+4, you will bring the blue panel to top. Ctrl+5 is for the red panel, and Ctrl+1 is then for the main SoFi panel. Next option is the open cluster panel. If you click on this, you will open the standalone cluster panel that is also linked with the SoFi results, for example, with the red result panel. This will all be discussed in more detail in our clustering tutorial. Let me close this. Next, we have the list of manual, history, terms and conditions, credits, and license information. If you click on these, in particular for manual or history or terms and conditions, you will open the PDF corresponding to the manual or the history of bugs and updates and terms and conditions directly from our server. Let me demonstrate this quickly for the history. If you click on history, you will have the Explorer that opens then our SoFi history. Same is true then for the manual and for terms and conditions. If you click on credits, you will have some information about the credits of the SoFi software package. If you click on license information, you will have the information, the serial number and the type of license in case you have SoFi Pro or SoFi real-time license, for example. Next, we have two options, close SoFi package or close SoFi key. Close SoFi package is useful, for example, if you want to update your SoFi software. You can click directly on close SoFi package. Igor will then remove the code, the SoFi code from this experiment, and you can then easily, for example here, drag and drop the new SoFi code in this Igor experiment, recompile, and then continue with your work. Same for the SoFi key here. And finally, from this list of options, the last entry is perform communication tests. This is useful in case you have to troubleshoot your experiment, your SoFi Pro or SoFi real-time key. In case there are issues, then we will ask you to perform communication tests and we will then check these results together bilaterally. Good. Those were the SoFi options. I will now go to the main settings and discuss the options, the main settings that the user can change. This is under main settings. If you click on this option, a panel pops with the main settings that contains two tabs. general options, and data options. I will go through both these tabs today. Let me quickly close the red panel and the blue panel first. Okay, general options contains 3 sections: general settings, graph settings, and RT settings. RT settings is linked with a real-time source apportionment module and will be discussed in more detail in our real-time source apportionment tutorial. Today, I will focus on general settings and graph settings for this tab. General settings contains 2 options: progress bar and the reopening panel function. The progress bar is typically enabled and is linked with the progress bar you see in the main SoFi panel here and with its minute representation below. These progress bars are useful in case you're doing, for example, PMF runs, or in case you have exhaustive calculations like averaging and you want to know how much time is left until the process has finished. Tests have shown that in case you disable these progress bars, this can be done here, you normally save roughly 20% of computational time. So in case you're in a hurry with, for example, PMF results or PMF runs, you might want to think of disabling these progress bars. The reopening panel function is useful in case you want to resize the panel in SoFi. Let me quickly demonstrate this with the orange panel. If you click on the orange button, you will open, in this case, the PMF options panel. And typically SoFi opens this panel from the last position. Now, if you move this and you click again on the orange button, then SoFi closes this panel. If you click again on the orange button, you will open now this PMF options panel from the last position. In case the position or the size is messed up, you could, for example, enable this option here. Normally it's disabled. You enable here. And then if you click now on any of our buttons in SoFi, in this case, for example, for the orange button, SoFi will ask you if you really want to reopen from the last position. In case you hit no, SoFi will take the default values and reposition this, in this case, the orange panel from its default values here also next to the SoFi main panel. The next option is graph settings that contains 2 options: customize the colors of the vectors we have in SoFi and the units. Customize the colors is interesting in case you want to change, in case you want to pass user-defined colors. Now, SoFi uses a default palette of colors for the vectors. Let me quickly show you this on the results. If you open the result panel, the main result panel, we have this red panel. And for the first 4 factors, for example, we have these default colors. Factor 1 is always red. Then we have factor 2 orange. Factor 3 is light green. And factor 4 is dark green. In case you want to pass user-defined colors, for example, that are defined for a particular source, you could do that using this option. You click on this button and then a list of factors appears. You can customize up to 100 factors, so from here down to 100. I will now customize only for the first 4 factors. If you click on factor 1, press shift and then click on factor 4, you will select the first 4 entries, and then if you click on start defining, SoFi will pop the color palette we have in Igor, and then the user can select the colors from the basic colors, from the more extensive palette, or in case you have already the colors, the indices for these colors, red, green, and blue, you can pass them here. Let me quickly select 4 random colors, like for example, yellow for the first one, orange for the second one, light green for the third one, dark green for the fourth one. Now if you click on the red button, you will close the results, and once you reopen them, you will have the new colors that are now stored in SoFi. If you're messed up something, you can always reset the list and start over. Those are the colors. The units is linked with the units of the PMF input. This is the same string you also have in the PMF input when you import the PMF input files. Let's move to data options. Here we have two sections. One is for signal to noise calculation, and the other contains various options for data representation in the results. For the signal to noise calculation, we offer two possibilities, either cell-wise signal to noise calculation or average. SoFi supports both. For the cell-wise calculation, the default value is we take the apps data of a particular cell divided by its error. We have two more options that the user can select, either the data as is divided by its error, or the signal to noise calculation based on Brown et al. 2015, where the error is first subtracted from the data in case the data is larger than the error. For more details, please consult Brown et al. For the average calculation, the default value is this first option here. We take the sum of the data and then we divide it by the sum of the error for the corresponding points. This works well. This has problems in case you have many negative data. If that's the case, you could either select this option here where you take the apps values or the squares here. For the sake of completeness, we also offer the signal to noise calculation based on Brown et al. For the average here. Data representation contains these options. I will go now through this entire list. First, downweight values. In case you downweight, for example, the error of particular variables, these downweight values are stored in SoFi, and anytime you have the results that contains the error, for example, for the scaled residuals or for the explained variation, these downweight values are considered. In case you don't want to see them in the results, you can click on Do Not Apply Downweight Values. Don't forget to reevaluate the results then. Robust values. PMF is typically performed within the robust value, where the errors are dynamically reweighted in case the signal to noise is above a specific value. The threshold is 4, and the results in SoFi also consider this robust mechanism. In case you don't want to see this robust value, you have to click here on Do Not Apply Robust Value. Also here, don't forget to reevaluate the results. Next, we have the signal to noise threshold for unexplained variation here. This is a threshold for the unexplained variation part. We typically differentiate between real unexplained variation and noisy unexplained variation. In case you have real unexplained variation, this is the case when we have unexplained variation with a signal to noise above 2. This is the default value, and then it's worth investigating further why this variation is unexplained. In case you have unexplained variation coming from data with a signal to noise ratio below 2, this is typically noise, and we don't want to investigate this further because it's noisy data. And the user can change the signal to noise threshold from here. For diurnal cycles, we typically have the resolution of 1. This is the default value, and we expect 24 points. In case the user has a different time resolution, in case the user has, for example, data only every 2 hours or 3 hours, the resolution can be changed here. And finally, for the diurnal cycle, we have two rounding mechanisms, either mathematical round here or truncated. Round is the default. This means that if you have, for example, data at 1:35, this will be then averaged at and stored at 2 o'clock. In case you want this data to be averaged and positioned earlier, you have to use the truncated part. This is all for data options, and this is all for the general options and settings we have in SoFi. Thank you for watching this tutorial about the main settings and main options in SoFi. We hope you liked it. In case you enjoyed and learned something new, hit the like button, and see us in the next tutorial.